So do we have any questions? Because we kind of hit so many things. Yes?
I'm curious about what bright spots you've seen, where you've seen kids that feel supported, feel a sense of possibility.
Many of our young people actually have a lot of hope. A lot of hope. They have a lot of hope. We saw a lot of bright spots when it comes to their aspirations, but structuring that is a whole different thing. We saw a lot of young people who, really involved in many of their community and working hard to, support their community. We saw people really trying to work on their mental health. We also identified several different nonprofits, I think, that are doing amazing work in the city, and Larry can kind of speak to.
I would say that also young people were a part of this work as well. So when Richard mentioned the strategy groups, those strategy groups were not only made up of adults and city leaders and school system leaders, but also young people. We don't do any of this work without the people that I would call our customers, right? So there were opportunities for young people to be a part of those strategy groups. There were young people who were a part of the recruitment of other young people to the project. We worked with some of the big organizations in the city that are really working with young people, and even some of those smaller ones that citywide you may not know about, but in the community, those folks are really pushing and moving some of the work. I mean, this work is really about building agency or strengthening the agency that already exists in communities and in young people. When we talk about resiliency, I believe that we can't often hang our hats on the resiliency that comes from marginalized communities, because then that community and those young people become martyrs, right? And we don't really do what we need to do, right? So when you think of like black folks always making $1 out of 15 cents, enough is enough, right? We want a little more than that 15 cents. So this brings all of that thinking together, but not just from us, but including the city and the young people that we serve.
I think also to speak on resilience even further, that is a huge bright spot in the fact that, within the academy in particular, there's been a lot of focus and research on this idea of resiliency. And people are starting to believe that, look, we're overhearing it. There's this cynical view of it within sociological and academic studies. And if there's any major bright spot, in addition to what we're seeing, is that youth and our students and our participants are willing and empowered to share their views and share their voices in ways and in methods that they've never had before. They're tired of the system, what they're seeing. They are empowered to change it. And as educators, as policymakers, we must give them this change by any means necessary, or they're going to make the change themselves, and we may be behind not even really knowing what's going on. So that's a major bright spot, is they know what's going on and they want to change it, and they're willing and ready to do it. I mean, look at voting rates in the 2020 election. Youth empowerment in voting, youth participation in voting is astounding. So that's a major bright spot within that too.
And one other point I just want to make on this topic is young people were so excited to talk about their experiences, and they wanted us to make sure we share it. So like Larry was saying, this is all about co-producing and working with nonprofits, working with government agencies, working with community leaders, working with experts at Hopkins, really working together to co-create, and this was what's possible. I want us to be aware of, one of the, I like the question of the bright spots, but I think we need to be uncomfortable with the dirty spots and stay there for a second. Because it's structural and we have to change these so that we don't have bright spots, but it's just spots of humanity, taking care of basic human needs and making sure everyone's treated with fair funding, fair resources and fair opportunities. Like Larry was saying, I think we're at a point now where we have to stop trying to make people do so much more, because it's not going to work. It's not going to work, but it's also hurting many people. And the people who do finally make it out, think about the traumatic experiences that they witness every single day and encounter every single day because of these unhealthy pathways that we have today.
So we had a question here, question. So we said 1, 2, 3, 4.
We give a lot of love to this side of the.
And I'll let you guys know, we like, this is like our thing, so we can go.
Yeah.
We're looking for greater information.
This is the power right here.
When the time, you can please give us a sign, because we don't want to take.
Bob, tell us when to stop.
Please.
So I guess my question is, I love that you said shift to the systems versus focusing on the individuals. And what I heard you say is, yes, grit is important, but if we're focusing on building individual grit, we're not actually acknowledging that kids have grit. What they need is voice and choice in the process, right? And they need to be a part of creating that because they've got the ideas, they've got the skills, they need to be given the platform, and we need to listen. One of the questions I have is, when you reached out to youth and youth were building that part of this, who were you missing that you wish could have come to the table? How did you identify those students to be involved? And who did you miss? Because I know oftentimes we go to those, school leaders, those kids who are already vocal. How did we get those kids who are actually disconnected on the streets, disengaged from the system, and then centered their voice? Because they're the ones impacted.
So two answers. So the first part about, I just want to kind of answer that deal about giving young people voice, right? So a lot of us in this space have given young people voice, but it's like, what do you do with that voice, right? Many of us, like folks who have listening sessions all day long with young people, and then take what you heard and put it on the shelf and go right back to what you've already done. So a part of that is a part of the work is for us to become uncomfortable in the spaces that we're in, right? And really beginning to make room for young people and make room for their community to be a part of the work that we're doing. When I say becoming uncomfortable, like really becoming uncomfortable, right? Really learning some things about yourself and about the work that you're doing, right? Really, some of us believe that we are doing some really great work, but if you had conversations with your customers, those young people, you may not hear the same thing that you believe, right? And so be able to accept that and then take that and build and move on beyond that. And then to the second question, or the second part, was that young people self-selected to be a part of this project. We didn't tap principals and say, send us your guys, right? Richard and I spent time in grocery stores, places where young people hang, every city event that was sponsored by, every family event that was sponsored by Baltimore City Public Schools, we had a table, we were there, we were walking around. Many of you don't know me here, but the folks that do know that I'm very involved in the city, and so we're a couple of different hats. I'm the chair of the Parent and Community Advisory Board of Baltimore City Public Schools, so we built and stepped on our relationships that we already had in the city, not just with people up here, but also the people on the street, right? And really allow them to say, hey, you might want to tap these kids over here, or hey, you might want to meet with these folks over here. And that's what we did. Folks, we had a website, we had young people who were recruiters, they sent folks our way, but I feel like we did a very good job at capturing the voices of all of Baltimore City, every type of Baltimore City, student and young person who's not in city schools, right? Who may be city schools adjacent, is like what I like to call them, right? And those folks that have left the system for a while for whatever, you might even have an opportunity to come back, but those young people that you might see outside right now doing school, right? They had the opportunity to participate as well. And, for their time, because this is something that they self-selected, they participated in that, we made sure that we gave them a gift for their time. Like, we're not in the game of taking from community and not giving back. So just like you guys have copies of the report, those young people have copies of the report, they can see their voices in the study as well. I just got to sign
And in terms of like recruiting, you know, the term we like to use is like snowball sampling, right? Like the idea that, you know, participants recruit other participants within communities. And what's unique about this project is that along with our, you know, youth recruiters that we do have, most of our participants, especially, we had this major jump of participation in our research between, I want to say, January and March, and it was just word of mouth. Students talking to other students, students posting organically on social media in particular, hey, there's a study that wants to hear your voice, reach out to them. And, you know, it's amazing when we get an email or we get contact and, you know, we reach out to them, they're so excited. And, you know, when you read the transcripts or you watch the videos, you can see their excitement because they feel empowered. They're talking to, you know, the Johns Hopkins, right? You know, this big monolithic institution they see and going, wow, I have this chance to do something that's going to better my community and my life. I'm going to take that. So it's incredible. We have interviews going right now, like as we're talking, like this doesn't stop.
Yeah. And one other point I just want to make, and like you said, the voice is already there, but institutionalizing that voice is a lot of work. And we discovered that doing this work. And we were in the community, but institutionalizing that voice to really get in places to sort of be heard is so important, and that's the work. You know, there's no deficit, right? There's just segregation and lack of resources and opportunities, right? Sure.
So did I say finish or, I'm sorry. I think it's like 3 questions. Let's get all 3 of them out and try to address them together.
Okay.
Mine's sort of a question comment. Thanks, Richard and team, for doing this work and choosing to do it in this way. I think I'm always thinking about, okay, how am I going to use this? And I have a lot of what I call these people conversations personally, and then professionally we call them mindset conversations. So helping administrators help their staff understand that these classically held misinformation and misbeliefs about those that they're serving. I just feel like this would be right for like a myth buster kind of activity. Like here's all the classic arguments that are deeply held by people, teachers and educators as well. And so these are like using their voice. I think it's a genius to be able to sort of like use their voice to serve as a myth busters to really help people move from this misinformation that they hold.
Thank you.
My question is about curiosity about the support you put in place to address young people getting to high school with really kind of depressed academic skill level. And so what are you doing to provide those academic supports and the recovery, the social emotional part that gets them ready to be successful in higher education? I mean, there's a lot of work to be done there.
So what are we doing? 'Cause we're not a program, right? So but what we are, I would consider ourselves to be a support for programs, right? And so this information that we share, and then also our experiences, connecting to those programs that are serving young people, that's really what we hope that, you know, the folks that we are connected to would also still take this study, reach out, and, you know, help, you know, think about how we can help build better programming for young people. But that's why we were able to partner with city schools and other larger institutions in this work as well.
So you're willing to work with
Yeah,
schools,
definitely,
with higher
definitely.
ed?
Like, we would love that you take this back to your program and say, let's check this out and then give us a thought.
So that's the final question. I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So mine is there anything that surprised you in terms of programs that people believe were helping and that students then informed actually harmed?
You asking me or you asking me?
I'll ask you.
I'll tell you, no, right? I've been in this work in this city for over 20 years, and I've probably been beating the same drum for a very long time. Maybe not the whole 20 plus years, but I've been beating the same drum. And as a program, like I ran programs, I ran after-school programs, I was a community school coordinator for a very long time, very connected, and I always go back to the people that are most affected by the work that we do, right? So if my parents aren't excited about it, if my young people aren't excited about it, then my stuff ain't right, right? But what happens is that it goes back to that uncomfortable thing, right? What happens is that in a city like Baltimore, there's so many organizations, Johns Hopkins included, who has always had their hand in things that go on in the city, right? So, yeah, excuse my language, my shit don't stink because I've always had this opportunity, right? But when you really have conversations with the people who are benefiting from whatever you're trying to sell, because if we were really making a change, we shouldn't be seeing the same people over and over and over again with the same exact issue. But we work within a system that keeps us all on that hamster wheel, right? The people we serve are on the hamster wheel of need, and we're all on the hamster wheel of support. If we got uncomfortable, those few people will come off of that hamster wheel, and we might, our jobs and our spaces may change a little bit, right? We may not be as comfortable as we've always been, but just remember that there is always profit and power, right? So are we really willing to do the work to get young people and communities in a place that they need to be? Or are we willing to do the work just to get by and we still are sitting comfortable? So it's like this question to the city and to people that work with young people is, how do you value Black children? Right? You really have to go back and question that. What is my value to Black children? And I'm done.
Thanks, guys. And on that note, we really want to thank Richard and